what I've got in front of me here is Festool's new CMS router table. Now, as much as I'd like to think that the CMS stands for cool Mark Spagnolo or maybe crazy Mark Spagnolo, Festool insists that it's compact modular system. Either way, it's a pretty awesome router table and it's something that I wanted to show you. Now, I haven't had a whole lot of time with this unit myself. I'm between shops and I'm actually in the middle of a project build right now, so I haven't had much time to play with it. So I can't really offer a comparative review to other router tables out there. But what I can do is show you the different features. I've got all the attachments, everything you could possibly add on to this thing, and we'll do a few different operations, basic router table operations, and you can see how you can go from one thing to the next. You get a close-up look at some of the components and parts and see how they work, and then maybe you'll be in a position to decide for yourself whether or not this is the right type of unit for your shop. Clearly, Festool's whole thing is about being portable, right? I mean, most of the Festool line is about being able to be a road warrior and having top of the line, shop quality tools at your disposal while on the road. But these also lend themselves well to a shop environment. So I'm gonna really have to test it out in my shop and see how it works. But so far, like everything Festool, it's very well built. And the one sort of overarching theme with all Festool stuff is the fact that they design everything from top to bottom. Unlike most router tables, which are designed to fit with as many other routers and other components as possible, they're really only worried about it working with Festool stuff. So they can from top to bottom design everything, which basically, in most cases, means that you're gonna end up with better results, more accuracy, and tighter tolerances on most things. So it's definitely something to consider if you're already in the Festool family of tools. This starts to make even more sense for you. So let's jump right in. I've got everything attached here. There's a great setup video online that you could check out that Festool produced, and you could see how these things are set up. I don't want to do that. I don't want to rehash that. I just want to go into each operation so you could see this thing in action. All right, so let's get to it. Now I'm going to start with a basic roundover operation, just a simple edge profile on this board. To do that, I need to get the fence out of the way because I haven't put the bit in there yet. So just unscrew these little knobs in the back. And the entire fence system moves out of the way. Now you see this inner ring here? This is basically your zero clearance insert. And the system comes with multiple sizes, of course, for different size bits. Pops out very easily, and the new one pops in. Okay, so I think this is the one we're going to use because my roundover bit should just fit nicely in there. Now my collet is below the surface. I'll be honest, I don't really even know for sure whether Festool wants you to change the bits from above or below, but I'm really lazy these days and I like to make above the table adjustments. So I'll show you both ways and how it would work here. First, let's do the above the table. So I'm just going to raise the bit, raise the router rather, as high as it's going to go. Put the bit into the collet and we'll start tightening it down. Now, of course, Festool routers have that ratcheting action, so underneath the table, I'm just putting my thumb on the ratchet arm, and I've got my wrench here. We'll start to tighten this bad boy up. There we go. All right, that feels pretty secure, so I really have no problems at this point recommending that you can do above the table adjustments on this. So now let's say we wanted to get access to the router from the underside and we want to lift the table up. It's actually very easy to do. You just unscrew these two little clips here. And this will be good too because I don't have the dust collection currently set up. It'll give me an opportunity to do that as well. All right, so you just lift it up. You can grab the entire top and flip it upside down like this. Now, of course, in this position, you've got easy access to make your bit changes. You can also get a look at how the router is held to the top plate with these little arms here. Right? Pretty straightforward. Now, what I'm going to do is install the shroud for the dust collection. Okay, it's already the bit that I want, so I could just flip it back over. Drop the back in place first. And just put your fingers in these little holes here so you don't pinch. And drop it right down. Then screwdriver again will lock everything in place. Now I can pop my insert back in and then raise the bit up. Now I'm just going to put the fence back in place. You can see these holes here with the index lines. That's where I'm aiming for. Tighten up my little knobbies. I'm just going to lift up the featherboard and the guard there. And like any other router table, I want to make sure that my fence is in line with my bearing. This is just a normal part of setup. So I just use a straight edge here. I'll lock one end down. Now the other end can still rotate. So I'll wait until that's flush with the bearing. A little too much. Right there. And tighten that side down. Now we don't necessarily want to get too close to this bit, but I do want to show you that if you need to close this gap up a little bit, you can move these fences back and forth. Right? They both will move, and the knobs just tighten up on the back to hold them in place. Now I'm just going to pull the featherboard and the guard down. It'll snap into place. Let's move this guy forward. Okay, and you can loosen here to push down, and this basically is acting as a downward featherboard, which on most systems is kind of an afterthought. You usually have to install it yourself or put something into a track. Frankly, I don't really make as much use of this type of feature as I probably should. That really helps to make it a whole lot safer and help you avoid the possibility of kickback. Right, so the featherboard down, and we also have the advantage of not only having a guard in place here, but this piece also acts as a featherboard. So I'm going to push that forward until it applies pressure to the workpiece. And push down on this guy too to get a little featherboard action, and tighten it down here. Now as you feed the workpiece in, you can see we're going to have some featherboard action from the guard, as well as some downward featherboard action to hold it in place. Pretty cool for that to be just built into the system. Now we've got two hoses to connect. One is the larger hose, which goes in the back of the fence, like so. And the other is a smaller hose that connects to the dust shroud on the router itself. And this Y adapter connects the two hoses directly to the CT vac. So let's make a roundover. Now this roundover looks pretty good, but honestly, I gotta tell you, that is not the thing that caught my eye. The thing I'm looking at is the fact that there isn't a speck of dust on this table anywhere. By collecting in the fence behind the bit, as well as underneath using the plastic shroud of the router itself, it just is amazingly effective dust collection. Frankly, I've never had this clean of a result with a router table ever. Now, one of the features that I'm absolutely thrilled to see is this sliding table. Now, anybody who's worked on a table saw that has a built-in sliding table or a European style saw, you know how useful those things can be. Not only that, they're incredibly accurate because the way they're bolted to the saw, it just makes a crosscut sled look like a child's toy. They're just incredible to use. This is really bringing that same concept to the router table. So you've got a rail that attaches to the front of the table and this sliding table that moves back and forth. Of course, that's not really going to be that useful unless you have a fence on there. So you have a pretty standard, for Festool, standard miter gauge here. This is a lot like the miter gauges that you would see on their multifunction tables. In fact, it looks like the same thing to me. All right, you just bolt it on to the outside, tighten it down, and it's ready to go. Now, of course, this is going to come in handy if you need to route the end of a long board like this. You really aren't going to have much luck running it across the bit this way because there's no support, right? So you need something behind that, either a scrap piece of wood or, in this case, a nice miter gauge. Bring it nice and flush against the fence, and now you've got full support all the way through the cut. I also envision this being incredibly helpful for things like raised panels, as you have to put a panel on all four sides through a very large bit. This is going to give you the kind of support that you really need to make that process safe and pretty accurate. All right, so the cut I'm going to do, just because I'm limited in the materials I have right now, we're just going to do a nice end grain roundover on this piece. Of course, I'm looking here at what I might be able to do with the included featherboards. And this guy here, the guard, it's really going to be in the way, right? Because this wants to sit down on the surface here. So what I'm going to do is rotate that around. And instead of just keeping the featherboards out of the way, I think we can make use of the vertical feather board to help put pressure down. It's the same thickness board, so I'm just going to keep the same setting I had before. And hey, something's better than nothing, right? All right, let's fire it up and make a cut. Now, those of you who are familiar with the CMS are probably laughing your butts off. Clearly, as I push this through, if my hand is here, I can't go through a metal bar that's in my way. So maybe this just isn't intended to be used with the sliding table and the miter gauge. But I figured, hey, I've got a built-in feather board, let's give it a shot, but I found out the hard way that I don't think that's what they ever intended me to do. Either way, if you move this out of the way, you shouldn't have any problems. Hey, it was worth a shot. But how are the results? Nice round over, got no complaints there. Dust collection, once again, was fantastic. One thing I am noticing is the way this system is put together. I don't know whether it's the rubber feet of the table or the fact that this tabletop is sitting on sort of a absorbent material. It's very stable. It feels really good. There's no vibrations, which is something that in a lot of router tables, I tend to feel that. When the router turns on, you feel a bit of motion in the table and vibration throughout the table. And this is sort of deadened in that way, which feels good when you're making a cut. So just thought I'd mention it. Okay, that's all good. I think we pretty much covered the miter sled and the sliding table. Let's move on to doing a cut with a bearing guided bit. Using a dust shroud and sort of a pivot point guide, or at least Festool's version of that. Now notice the fence is removed again, and I've got this little fancy schmancy guard dealy whacker doohickey, and I've got 4 holes here. I can drop these right in. Now 3 of the bolts are just these little guys, and you'll notice with a lot of this system it's toolless. Once the initial setup is done, everything has a knob that you could turn. You don't really need any specialized tools to get things done. Right, and of course I've got this longer bolt, and this one is for the guide. Right, so I'll push that through. Now I'm actually going to remove the guard here just so that we can see what we're doing. Now on most router tables, you'll find that they have an additional safety feature. It's this little guide pin, and typically there's a screw hole in the top. You would attach it there, and what that does is it allows you to bring your workpiece into the pin first and then slowly make contact with your bit. It just allows for a lot more control and a much safer cut than going right into the bit and the bearing itself. All right, now this is good, but what Festool came up with, I think is better. All right, they have this plastic arm. It's got a little angle, bevel cut into the end here, so you can go right up against your bearing. You tighten that in place. And what's gonna happen is your workpiece will ride against this, go right into the bit, and you have full support the entire time. There's no gap between the safety guide and the bit, right? So this is pretty darn cool. I've never used it before. This will be my first time, but I'm really intrigued with what they've come up with here. So let's tighten everything down. Make sure everything is in place. I'm gonna bring my plastic shroud, and that's for safety and for better dust collection. Tighten that. You want that just above the height of the workpiece. About there. Now I can hook the dust collection up, and we can make that cut. Boy, that is so simple, but what a nice innovation. I really like having the full support all the way through. Through the entire cut, there isn't a moment that you feel like you're doing something even remotely dangerous. And sometimes when you have that pin in place and there's a gap there, you still really have to be careful about how you approach the corner where you go into the bit. This way, it's just fully supported the entire way. Very, very cool. Now I've got the fence system back in place here because I want to show you one more thing that I think is pretty cool. Normally, you would want your fence halves in line with one another. For most operations, that's exactly what you're looking for. But there are some things that you do where you might want to offset your fences. For instance, if you don't have a joiner and you want to use the router table to joint the surface or the edge of a board, you would need to offset these fences. And usually we use sacrificial fences or shims or something to offset the two halves. Well, this is built into the fence. There's a knob in the back that has micro adjustability, and you just rotate that knob and it pulls the fence back. right? And that gap can be adjusted to whatever operation you're doing. The one that comes to mind is jointing for me, but I'm sure there's other things where you'd want to, where something like that might come in handy, but it's nice that it's built in and you've got the micro adjustment knob built into the system. So in summary, it's a pretty darn cool system. The thing is, I haven't spent enough time with it to really give you a critical review and how it compares to other systems that we might be used to, things like my Jessam table that I've been using for years now. So I just need more time with it to be able to offer an opinion like that. That said, I don't really see anything that this system can't do. In fact, with the accessories like the sliding table, I see a lot of great things that it can do that other systems can't. Or you would need comparable add-ons. I know some systems have a slider that you can attach to the fence, which is pretty cool too. But really, system is really good. Dust collection on this is definitely the best that I've seen so far on any router table that I've ever had the pleasure of using. And this is typical Festool stuff. It's very high end and it is not cheap. So I know one of the questions you're going to have is, should you buy it over a comparable system? And I can't answer that question for you. I think it will satisfy all of your needs in terms of functionality. But like anything else Festool, it's really up to the individual to decide whether or not it's worth the asking price. It's very difficult for me to tell you whether or not you should buy it. But I do think it is a very capable system, certainly up there with the best that I've seen. And time will tell how it fares in my shop. This will be set up, by the way, in the new shop, in addition to my other router table, because I need to sort of use them both to be able to give you a good comparative opinion. But that's something that's going to take a little bit of time. So in the meantime, I hope this video helped out. If you're in the market for something like this, I hope just showing you its feature set gives you an idea of what you can expect out of it. I will say that the system, because it's designed to be portable, it's fairly lightweight. So of course, if you shake the table, it's gonna move. That doesn't necessarily mean it's unstable. Most of the time when I'm using my router table, I'm not shaking it. I'm just running work pieces across it. But the advantage here is that if you do need to take this thing on the road or onto a job site, it's gonna pack up and travel very easily, like everything Festool, so something to keep in mind. But for a shop woodworker, you never really have to do that, and it is stable, but it is on the standard, Festool legs. So that may bother some people, I don't know. It seems stable enough for me for any shop activity. So that's it, guys. I hope this helps you out, and like I said, we'll do a future update and let you know how it fares compared to other units out there. Thanks for watching.